So guys, we're going to do this bearing pattern. John Deere Amazon mill. I'm assuming that's cane mill. Number 3, and this is the main bearing, and he needs 2 of these. We also have another one where we're going to have to do just like this one that has 4 bearings. So we're going to have 6 in all. I was having trouble pulling this out of the sand, and I think it was catching right here. So the foil tape is going to aid not only in adding a little bit to the length, but it's also going to help aid in pulling this. Very easy fix. Just butt it up against the table and push it in. Make sure I don't have any air pockets there. I'm not putting a lot of pressure on this. I'm just enough to hold it in place as I trim around it. Need to cut my lights on out here, don't I? And that's it. And then I just kind of use the smooth part of this aluminum handle to kind of round that out. Instead of using sodium silicate, we're going to actually use green sand cores. That will be sufficient for this because it's a pretty good mass of sand that will hold itself together. I'm going to put this right here, and then I'm going to put my sprue here. My runner is going to go on each side of this and feed it with it upside down. And from there, I'm going to put 2 little pipe vents, one on each side. Humidity's really high right now, and I don't want to waste a lot of time fighting a pattern with moisture. Let's see if this will come out a little easier this time. probably, before I do any more, alright, I'm hearing it echo a little. I'm probably going to go ahead and coat these. There we go. This thing is being stubborn. Now when I pull this, it's got to be parallel. Right now I see more coming up there than I do this end, so I need to kind of push this way and wiggle. Now I see it coming up over here. So now I'm going to focus again on just trying to keep it parallel. It's coming, but it's a few thousandths at a time. It appears it's grabbing right here and here, so I'm just going to coat these and with my graphite, and that should take care of that. So I'm done with this, other than heating it, and I'm probably going to wait until I put the core in to do that. I think I told you I'm wanting to put 2 pipe vents about right here on each side. And this is just to get all the gases out of there. And then I'm just going to make sure I got a good radius right here and here. Don't want any sharp edges right there. That ought to work for that. So now we're going to cut our gates. Alright, so we're going to vent just the core area. And I got a penny under here I got to get out. Forgot about that. Got to get that out. Alright, so we are done with this part of it for now. Next, we're going to ram up the core. Like I said, we're going to be using green sand, not sodium silicate, because it's a waste of time if green sand will work. I don't like that. The other core did not have that on it, so you see the cracks. Well, we'll let it go. It's just going to leave some little fissures in the sand. All I got to do is cook this one and put it together. So it makes more sense to go ahead and test what I've got now, see where it's going to lead before I pour 6 bad molds. Now if these 2 turn out looking good, I'll know what to do on the next 4. This shouldn't be a problem, but anytime I say that, I screw up. Yeah, that was on my first attempt. I think that's going to be fine. We'll know here shortly. This is the mold you just saw me make. Alright, I'm gonna get Keith's wire brush. A little flash in here where the core was. You know, I said, and this is the second one I molded. Told you there was probably going to be some fissures in the core. Sure enough, there it is. All right, from here I'm just going to cut everything off. This is the bearings. I got one little defect right there, but it doesn't go any farther than right in that spot right there, so I'm not worried about that. And you remember I was pointing out those cracks in the core? I said they were most likely going to cause fissures in the material. Well, it did. That's not a problem. All that's going to be machined away. But if you turn it sideways, all that protrudes like little mountain ridges going across there. None of it goes below the surface. And all that is molten bronze that seeped into those tiny little cracks on the core. But the finish, I'm not worried about the finish. These are bearings. It's nothing decorative. It's strictly a bearing. The material looks great. I am going to go ahead and go with that on the next 4 and mold them the exact same way I did this one. So I'm going to go ahead and knock those out, and I'll bring you back to it as we are pouring these. And next, we're going to be casting a steam whistle valve, and that's going to be in red brass. I don't pour red brass, I pour yellow brass, and I'm going to have to find an old Crucible that was used for iron in order to do this project with, because I don't want to contaminate my regular bronze or my yellow brass crucibles. You get that red brass in there, you won't get it out. It just makes a mess of everything, and then before you know it, your castings are delaminating. It'll look like there's layers of metal instead of good solid material. It just messes it up. So we're just gonna go with a cast iron crucible that's on its way out anyway. Well, the muller broke on me, and I had to pull this old plow out and put it back in there. It's been wearing against the side walls of the sand. And it finally got so thin it failed. And I couldn't see it because there was a bed of sand in the way all the time. Luckily, I keep spare parts, even when I replace them. And those were new plows. So I'm not sure. This one I did a little modification on and made the cutting edge a little higher up on the wall. And that's to help keep buildup above the plow from caking up and wearing into this. Much better. So I'm going to run this now and keep my fingers crossed. If it holds up for the first 3 or 4 batches, we're probably good. Now, a molar's biggest enemy is chunks of metal in the sand. So now, and I told you a little bit about this, I think, in the last video, but this little contraption here, every time I dump molds, it gets sieved through this, and that catches any chunks that could end up in this sand to potentially hang the molar up. That wasn't the case with this situation today. This was strictly abrasion, and hopefully this plow setup will hold up for a while. If it doesn't, I do have other options. Well, I can't thank my buddy Eddie enough for these clamps. They are coming in very handy today. This is not the final diameter. It's still got to squeeze down some more, but I'm just trying to take the stresses out of it and get it to kind of hold a memory to that radius before we go any smaller with it. Well, we got 4 molds for the other size bearing. I'm going to pour that now. We may not have enough bronze left over here. So what I've got to do, we got to break this thing up. And I melted most of the babbitt out of it. I'm going to hit it one more time and get the last of that residual. Crucible is designated strictly for bearing bronze, and that's all I put in that crucible. Now, I don't have one for red brass because we never do red brass, and we got a job coming up for that. Very, very small job at that. And I do have some red brass that we can break up, and we may as well go ahead and do that and have it ready. And what I'll have to do is take one of my old iron crucibles, and I have plenty of them laying around back here. I'll use one of those for the red brass, and that way we don't cross-contaminate. Well, this job is done. These are cane mill bearings for a John Deere mill. And anyway, these are bearing bronze. No defects in the material whatsoever, other than a few fissures, and that's external, not internal. But yeah, these turned out looking really good. Now, the finish is rough. That's because I chose to use a fast sieve just to get this job done. The finish does not matter. All of this is going to be covered up by a clamp, and it's so I'm not worried about that. Most of the surfaces that are going to be critical are going to be machined. I'm assuming Keith is going to be machining this flat, and he's going to be turning this ID, possibly machining the ends. So anyway, I'm done with these, so I'm going to go ahead and get those wrapped up and get on the whistle valve. For those who have been asking about the Windy Hill Foundry hats, these are now available on my website, windyhillfoundry.com, under stores, or you can click on the above link. These are on the pricey side, but keep in mind the shipping is included. Have a good day.